With that in mind, I want to bring in Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland to talk more about this. Congressman, thanks for joining us on this. Appreciate it. You voted in favor, I imagine, of this CR today?
But I absolutely did. I mean, we saved the women, infant, children nutrition program. We saved Head Start. We saved the SNAP program, all the investment in the people of America that we've been fighting for. So we got the vast majority of what we wanted. The only thing that was stripped out by McCarthy in again, an unsuccessful bid for the extreme right within his caucus was $300 million in Ukraine funding. And that is money we're absolutely devoted to because the people of Ukraine need that to defend themselves against Putin's, bloodthirsty invasion of their country. And winter is coming there soon, and we need to be on the side of the Ukrainians who are trying to reclaim territory and to thwart the expected Russian winter offensive there. So it's very important that we get that done. We know that a majority in the Senate is totally on the side of Ukraine funding. A big majority in the House is on the side of Ukraine funding. And so we're going to get that done, and we're going to get everything we want. And we're going to try to release ourselves from the clutches of Donald Trump, who started off the week sending his helpers and Putin's little helpers in the House to try to shut down the government and impeach Joe Biden, and now they want to overthrow Kevin McCarthy for not being sufficiently obsequious to all of their demands.
You said so many things, Congressman. I'm not quite sure where to start. But let me start with this. Do you expect to get it done in the next 45 days?
Yeah, we're absolutely determined to get that done because Ukraine is the front lines of the defense of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law and national sovereignty all over the world. So America cannot relent and cannot buckle under to our own pro-Putin extremists who are now something like a third of the Republican caucus in the House. And obviously those orders are also coming from Donald Trump, the guy who wants to impeach Biden for nothing. And that blew up in their faces at their hearing on Wednesday. The guy who wanted to shut down the government, that blew up in their faces today. But then they also want to overthrow Kevin McCarthy. So we'll see how that goes. Some problems that Republicans cause, Republicans have to try and solve themselves.
There's been some reporting that Speaker Emerita Pelosi has warned Democrats in the House against necessarily supporting Speaker McCarthy if, in fact, they raise a motion to vacate. For instance, Matt Gaetz raises a motion to vacate as he has threatened to do so. Where are you on this?
I'm with the Democratic caucus. What we decide to do collectively, I'm totally against anybody going out and freelancing and making deals with this Republican or that Republican. We've already seen what the extreme MAGA faction is capable of, and they would literally do something that no foreign enemy of the United States has ever been able to do, which is to shut down the government of the United States. So we've got to be very careful in dealing with them, and we've got to be principled. Some of my colleagues come from states where there are power-sharing arrangements between the two parties when the right-wing faction undermines any cohesion among the Republicans, and they divide up the gavels, they share committees, they share the speakership. Some people have talked about that. Others have said you can't deal with these people, you can't trust them. I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet, and all I know is I'm sticking with the Democrats.
Congressman, I found it kind of fascinating and somewhat lacking in self-awareness when I heard the messaging coming from Speaker McCarthy just now. I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to some of the things that he had to say in his presser just now. I think you were just getting hooked up to our cameras, so you weren't able to hear it. But he kind of tried to blame the Democrats here and talking about the motion to adjourn. That motion, obviously, the Democrats wanted in order to review this 70-page clean CR that was put in front of them. And he was saying that, they were giving them the runaround and then that it was so important for the American people and Democrats should not have asked for this motion to adjourn. He was pointing the finger at the President Biden as well, but failing to acknowledge the right wing of his party who are holding up votes for the last couple of weeks and threatening him with a motion to vacate and basically brought us to where we are now.
Well, they may try to obscure everything with parliamentary jargon and minutia right now, but everybody knows exactly what happened. He's got a rampaging extremist right faction which is controlled by Donald Trump, and he's been catering to them and appeasing them for months and months. Indeed, ever since he first got elected in that infamous 15-ballot election back in January. And it doesn't work. You can't feed the monster enough. It's insatiable, but he's never been able to take them on because you've got to take them on with principle. They've got a program and agenda that is totally antithetical to the common good and the public interest of the people of America. And he won't do that. And so that's why he's betwixt and between, and now suddenly trying to blame Joe Biden for his own problems, which is just comical. So, we'd like to see Kevin McCarthy try to stand up on principle against the MAGA extremists who've been dictating the agenda on their side. And that's what we're doing. And look, if they can't find a speaker, we've got a great speaker in Hakeem Jeffries. I think America got to see him for several hours talk about the major accomplishments the Democrats have been able to score over the last several years. Even when we had a very narrow margin equivalent to the one they've got now, we did a $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan. We reduced healthcare costs. We did the biggest climate action package in the history of the world. So we've got to move forward. We don't have time for the authoritarian nonsense anymore. The autocrats and the plutocrats and the theocrats have nothing to offer America. And so we've got to move forward.
Let me ask you about Ukraine funding real quick here, because the final question to McCarthy was, where do you stand on Ukraine funding? And he talked again about the blank check, right? This is something that he has said repeatedly, and I don't think anybody is supporting a blank check to Ukraine. But talk to me about how checks and balances go when it comes to funding Ukraine and the importance of funding this war in Ukraine in defense of Russia's invasion on them.
Well, nobody has ever asked for a blank check. Nobody has ever tried to legislate for a blank check. We just want to fill in the check with the amount of money that the Ukrainians need to defend themselves against Vladimir Putin, who's engaged in mass war crimes, including mass kidnapping of children in Ukraine, mass rape of women and girls in Ukraine, and attacks on civilian targets like schools and hospitals, and the killing of civilians all over the country. And so we should be leading the world, not immersed in all of this ambiguity and right-wing chaos and drift. We should be leading the world in defending the people of Ukraine and standing with them in their righteous struggle to defend their own nation and their own democracy. And that's why Putin is really threatened by them, because they have a democracy right on the border of Russia when he wants to turn his country into a complete authoritarian dictatorship and to link up with the dictators around the world. So we've got the same struggle in America today. We're fighting for democracy and freedom against our own homegrown kleptocrats like Donald Trump, who wants to use the government of the United States as an instrument of self-enrichment for him and his family, and the theocrats who would dictate to the women of America what their destiny is going to be. So we've got a righteous struggle for democracy and freedom here, but we've got the resources and we've got the love in our hearts for democracy to support the people in Ukraine, and we're going to make that happen within the next week or two.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, I always enjoy talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, House Democratic leadership speaking now. I believe Catherine Clark there. Let's listen in.
And build a budget in a bipartisan way that will meet the needs of the American people and live up to the spending agreement that Kevin McCarthy has already